Last season, the Texas Longhorns fielded one of the most intellectually complex, cerebral defenses in college football history.
Yeah, they really did.
And the reward for that, they got absolutely shredded. I mean, they gave up 239 passing yards a game.
Which is just brutal.
Right, ranked 101st nationally. Because it turns out making 19-year-olds play 4D chess against SEC speed is, well, it's a massive recipe for disaster.
Exactly. It just doesn't work.
So, welcome to the Longhorns Nation podcast. Today we are grabbing a massive stack of sources. We're talking reports from Sports Illustrated, Dave Campbell's Texas Football on 3 A to Z Sports, and we're analyzing the 2026 Texas Longhorns football team.
It's a huge breakdown today.
It is. Our mission here is to give you a masterclass on how a championship contending team manages a roster in 2026.
Yeah, and you're going to see a wildly different approach this year.
Definitely. We were exploring a violently aggressive philosophical shift happening on defense and the incredibly delicate balancing act between high-priced transfer portal veterans and literally 16-year-old phenoms fresh out of high school.
The contrast between last year's defensive approach and what Steve Sarkisian is doing now couldn't be starker. I mean, we are witnessing a complete philosophical teardown.
Right.
He didn't just tweak the scheme, you know. He brought back Will Muschamp as defensive coordinator to enact a hard reset.
And for anyone tracking the history of this program, Muschamp's first stint from 2008 to 2010 was legendary.
Okay.
Texas went to the national championship. They boasted the #1 sack defense in the nation. And now he returns with, 2 recent national titles from his time as co-DC at Georgia.
Yeah, the pedigree is undeniable. But to really understand the sheer magnitude of this shift, we have to look at what Muschamp is actually replacing.
Right, Pete Kwiatkowski's defense.
Exactly. PK's defense was built on intricate pre-snap disguises. Like, we're talking single high safety looks where the defense pretends to cover the deep middle, only to aggressively rotate at the snap. We're talking about creeper concepts.
And for those unfamiliar, the creeper concept is essentially where you drop a 260-pound defensive end into short zone coverage while a linebacker blitzes from like 15 yards away.
Right.
Which, I mean, it looks like an absolute masterpiece on a whiteboard.
On a whiteboard, it's beautiful, it's brilliant, but on the perf, it creates a fatal processing delay.
Yeah.
Because when a defensive end has to suddenly backpedal, identify a crossing route, and react in space, he isn't playing instinctively anymore. He's processing data.
He's thinking.
Exactly. And when you're up against elite SEC quarterbacks who release the ball in like 2.5 seconds, hesitation is a death sentence. The players were thinking instead of reacting, which is exactly why they gave up those 239 passing yards per game.
So Muschamp walks in and essentially says, look, we're done trying to outsmart everyone.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sarkisian essentially realized you don't need to trade a 4D chess match you don't need to play 4D chess when you could just have a cage match.
Right.
You don't need to outsmart the opponent when you can just overwhelm them.
And his new scheme, heavily influenced by that Georgia background, is just aggressively simple. He relies on 6-man blitzes, combined with zone match principles.
Which is totally different from pure zone.
Completely different. Instead of just guarding a patch of grass in a traditional zone or playing pure man-to-man where you're just chasing a receiver across the field, zone match dictates that you guard a zone until a receiver enters it. And then you lock onto him like man-to-man. It simplifies the read so much. You see the man, you hit the man.
Wow.
That simplification is the entire engine of this new defense. By simplifying the reads for his own players, Muschamp essentially takes the brakes off their physical speed. And simultaneously, by bringing aggressive 6-man pressures, he's overwhelming the offensive lines blocking Matt. I mean, you literally can't block 6 rushers with 5 offensive linemen.
The math just doesn't work.
No. It forces the opposing SEC quarterback into quick, really uncomfortable decisions before the play design can even materialize. Muschamp is speeding up the opponent's mental clock by slowing down his own players' mental workload.
Which sounds great, right? Muschamp's whole philosophy is built on that violent downhill pressure. But the reality is the Longhorns linebacker room, the guys who actually have to execute that violence, got completely gutted.
Oh, they lost so much production.
They lost 4 of their top 10 snap leaders. I mean, Anthony L. Jr. and Leona Lafau are gone. That is a massive void in the middle of the field.
It is, which is precisely why Muschamp is reintroducing a highly specialized role to the Texas defense.
The buck position.
Exactly, the buck. To survive in the SEC without those veteran linebackers, you have to create structural confusion for the offensive line, and the buck is designed to do exactly that.
Yeah, looking at this buck position on film, it seems like a total wild card.
It really is.
Like one play, this guy might have his hand in the dirt, rushing the A-gap.
Yeah.
You know, that physical space directly between the center and the guard.
Right.
The next play, he drops into robber coverage, lurking in the midfield blind spots, just waiting to jump intermediate crossing routes, or he just rushes off the outside edge like a traditional defensive end. So as an offensive center, how are you supposed to set the blocking protections when you don't even know what position the buck is actually playing on that specific snap?
Well, the short answer is he can't.
Wow.
That hesitation by the center creates a split-second delay in the blocking scheme, and frankly, that is all the buck needs. But to fill this highly volatile role, Texas heavily utilized the transfer portal.
Oh, they went shopping?
They did, and the sources give them an A+ grade for their haul. They brought in Pitt transfer Rasheem Biles.
Oh, Biles is a monster.
Yeah. This is a player who racked up 101 tackles and 17.5 tackles for loss last year. I mean, he is the quintessential downhill missile required for the buck position.
And you pair a mercenary like Biles with internal development, and suddenly the picture becomes terrifying for offenses.
Yeah.
Because Texas retained Ty Anthony Smith after an incredible sophomore year.
Oh, he was fantastic.
59 tackles, 3 interceptions. And he capped that season off with a completely dominant 2-interception performance against Michigan in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, so you have Biles and Smith commanding the second level, but we really need to look at the trenches because the defensive line is where the math really shifts.
Oh, for sure.
They bring back elite EDG rusher Colin Simmons, who, casually led the SEC with 12 sacks last year.
Just casually.
Right. They have Hero Kanu returning, and then they grab Ian Jeffrod from the portal out of Arkansas.
Okay, we need to pause and talk about the physical geometry of Ian Jeffrod.
We really do.
He is a nose tackle standing 6'5" and weighing 387 pounds.
I mean, when you put 387 pounds of human being directly over the center, you fundamentally alter the physics of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, you just block out the sun.
Exactly. Jeffrod demands a double team on every single snap because a solitary 300-pound center physically cannot move him backward.
Yeah.
And when Jeffrod absorbs 2 offensive linemen, he creates a mathematical advantage for the rest of the defense. It leaves this massive, unblocked vacuum for guys like Rasheem Biles and Ty Anthony Smith to exploit.
But let me push back on this broader roster strategy for a second, because the reports note that Texas heavily utilized revenue share money to buy proven production over projection in the portal.
Yeah, they spent big.
Right. So if you build the core of your defense with one-year rentals, like Biles, does that risk damaging the long-term locker room culture? I mean, you are essentially building a task force of mercenaries rather than a cohesive multi-year brotherhood.
That's the question, right? It is the defining gamble of the 2026 era, but you have to view that strategy through the lens of Muschamp's simplified scheme.
How so?
Well, a 387-pound anchor like Jeffrod or a downhill missile like Biles, they don't need 3 years to learn complex defensive line stunts or cerebral coverage drops. They just need to win their individual physical matchups. Muschamp's system allows these one-year transfers to plug and play immediately without experiencing a steep learning curve. So the locker room culture becomes less about shared history and entirely about shared execution.
That makes sense. But that execution has to extend to the secondary, which brings us to the most vulnerable part of last year's team.
It was a rough year back then.
Yeah. If the defensive line is going to be this blunt force instrument, the secondary has to be structurally sound. Last year, the defensive backfield was just a mismanaged communication network.
It really was. And they lost major NFL draft talent in Michael Taffa, Malik Muhammad, and Jaylon Gilbo.
Right. So to fix the coverage issues that bled those 239 passing yards a game, Muschamp isn't just swapping out players. He is aggressively shuffling the deck.
The positional movement in the secondary is fascinating. Like, Kobe Black is moving full-time from cornerback to safety. The reports specifically highlight his combination of raw coverage attributes and what scouts call safety diagnostics.
Let's break down safety diagnostics for the listener, because it's not just about being a smart football player.
No, not at all.
It is about understanding the geometry of route combinations in real time. A corner only has to worry about his specific man or his specific third of the field.
Right.
A safety has to read the quarterback's shoulders, recognize that the tight end releasing flat means the X-receiver is likely running a dig route right behind him, and adjust his pursuit angle accordingly.
Precisely. And by moving black to safety, Muschamp puts a player with elite diagnostic skills directly in the center of the field. Then, he takes Xavier Filsaime and moves him permanently to the star position.
Which is essentially their nickelback.
Exactly. The fifth defensive back brought in to counter spread offenses. Filsaime excelled there during the spring. And to anchor the edges, they brought in Rutgers transfer Bo Masco to provide incredibly physical run support on the outside.
I have to ask, though, are we just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic here?
How do you mean?
I mean, how does moving a corner to safety or a safety to nickel actually plug the holes that allowed 239 passing yards a game last year? Like, does that actually fix it?
It solves the breakdown because Muschamp's entire philosophy relies on fortifying the spine of the defense. He wants absolute control over the middle of the field.
Okay.
When you put highly versatile, high IQ athletes like Black and Filsaime in the center, you pair them with the absolute anchor of the group, returning strong safety Jelani McDonald.
Oh, man. McDonald.
Yeah, McDonald led the team with 80 tackles, grabbed 3 interceptions, and posted a 91.4 PFF tackling grade.
I mean, a 91.4 tackling grade for a defensive back is completely absurd.
It's unheard of.
That means the tackling mechanics, the pad level, the wrap-up, the sheer force of the collision are just flawless. If McDonald gets his hands on a receiver in the open field, the play is dead.
That is exactly why Muschamp places him in the middle. By putting your surest tacklers and smartest diagnostic players in the center of the field, you take away the easy high-percentage throws over the middle that just killed Texas last year. You force opposing offenses to go wide or deep. You force quarterbacks to throw outside the numbers. Those are the longest, lowest percentage throws in football. So the positional shuffling isn't a sign of panic. It is a calculated strategy to dictate the geometry of the field.
So Muschamp's whole philosophy is built on the reality that modern offensive lines are crumbling under aggressive pressure.
Yes.
Ironically, the Longhorns' own offense is currently proving his exact point.
Oh, painfully so.
Because Texas brought in a massive offensive portal haul. But the On3 spring game report exposed some brutal, ugly realities in the trenches.
The contrast between the perimeter weapons and the interior blocking is just glaring.
It really is. In the portal, Texas secured elite offensive weaponry. They landed Auburn wide receiver Cam Coleman, who put up 93 catches and 3,306 yards in just 2 years, despite dealing with terrible quarterback play.
He's a game breaker.
And they also brought in Wake Forest offensive tackle Melvin Siani, who played 914 snaps without allowing a single sack.
Which is an incredible stat.
But then the spring game happens, and the offensive line is universally labeled the ugly part of the scrimmage. They struggled with injuries, poor pass protection, and terrible run blocking.
Even the tight end blocking was a major concern.
Yeah, though Michigan State transfer Michael Masunas showed some flashes of potential. But honestly, it feels like Texas just bought a Ferrari engine by bringing in Cam Coleman, but the transmission's falling apart with these O-line injuries.
That's a perfect analogy. You can have the most advanced targeting system in the world with a receiver like Coleman. But if the submarine hull your offensive line cracks under SEC pressure, the whole ship implodes before you can even launch the weapon.
Exactly.
And we have to contextualize this as a broader O-line crisis in modern college football. Finding athletic, versatile humans who weigh over 300 pounds and possess the lateral quickness to pass block elite SEC edge rushers is mathematically difficult.
There just aren't enough of them.
There are simply not enough of those human beings on the planet to supply every elite program. So when the hole cracks, as we saw in the spring game, you cannot rely on traditional drop-back passing concepts. You have to change how you operate.
So if you can't guarantee 4 seconds in a clean pocket, what is the workaround?
Processing speed and mobility. You have to rely heavily on quick rhythm passes to negate the rush. And you need a quarterback who can either process the field in 2 seconds or use his legs to buy that 3rd second.
Right.
Which is why the bright spot from the spring game is so critical. Quarterback KJ Lacey came in, completely dispelled the doubts about his physical frame, and showed remarkable poise, mobility, and accuracy.
Yeah, he looked great.
If the line can't hold, Lacey's ability to process the breakdown and escape the pocket becomes the offensive line's ultimate band-aid.
Okay, so we have dissected the high-priced portal veterans and the massive scheme shifts. But here is where the roster management puzzle becomes truly fascinating. We have to look at the 2026 early signing day class.
Yeah, this is where it gets fun.
Because even with all this portal spending, Sarkisian brought in the #7 overall recruiting class in the nation.
And they achieved that ranking despite missing out on a major legacy target in Jalen Lott.
Missing lots stung, but the sheer volume of talent they signed is staggering. Offensively, they landed 5-star quarterback Diabell. Scouts are actively comparing his throwing mechanics and pocket presence to Joe Burrow.
That's high praise.
And they grabbed 5-star running back Derek Cooper, drawing serious comparisons to the physicality of Raheem Sanders. But the defensive haul is nightmare fuel for the rest of the SEC. They signed 4-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson, who analysts are calling a Roquan Smith clone. And then there was Richard Wesley.
Oh, man.
The sources heavily emphasize this point. Wesley is a terrifying 6'4", 245-pound ET rusher who is only 16 years old.
It's hard to even comprehend. A 16-year-old with the physical dimensions of an NFL veteran.
I know what you are thinking at home. You are listening to this thinking, there is absolutely no way a literal 16-year-old can physically hold up against a 22-year-old fifth-year senior left tackle in the SEC.
Right.
But the reports indicate that his raw leverage, his low center of gravity, and his explosive burst off the line of scrimmage completely level the playing field.
It's insane.
And if Wesley wasn't enough, the wild card of the entire recruiting class is 5-star athlete Jermaine Bishop. He is being hailed as a Travis Hunter clone, a player so electric with the ball in his hands that Sarkisian is letting him decide which side of the ball he wants to play on.
Having a player like Bishop, who literally dictates his own positional usage based on sheer athletic dominance, creates an incredible dynamic within the building.
But it also creates a massive roster management dilemma. You look at Jermaine Bishop, a guy who can literally do it all, or Richard Wesley, a 16-year-old built like an NFL veteran. How does a coaching staff balance letting these young phenoms learn the ropes versus throwing them into the fire over the older, proven transfer veterans we discussed earlier?
It all circles back to the philosophical shift Will Muschamp brought to the defense.
Right.
In Pete Kwiatkowski's highly complex system, a 16-year-old like Richard Wesley would have spent 2 full years just learning the playbook. He would have been paralyzed by the mental processing required to execute those creeper concepts and coverage drops.
You'd be stuck on the bench.
Exactly. But in Muschamp's simplified athletes-first defense, the mental burden is stripped away. The coaching staff simply tells a 6'4", 245-pound freak athlete to put his hand in the dirt, beat the man in front of him, and violently attack the quarterback.
It is purely about physical leverage and an unclouded mind.
Precisely. Because the scheme relies on winning one-on-one matchups rather than executing a perfectly choreographed 11-man dance, freshmen like Wesley and Atkinson actually have a drastically accelerated path to the field.
Wow.
Muschamp's demand for violence and speed creates a pure meritocracy. It doesn't matter if you are a fifth-year portal veteran or a 16-year-old high school graduate. If you can physically dominate the man across from you without overthinking, you will play.
So when you sit down to watch the Longhorns play this fall, you are looking at a fundamentally different product on the field. What are the key takeaways from this breakdown? Well, defensively, look for a unit that plays fiercely downhill. Watch for the lack of pre-snap confusion. You're going to see violent linebacker blitzes from that new buck position, and you will see elite athletes unleash to win pure one-on-one matchups.
Yeah.
On the offensive side, you will be watching a precarious high-wire act. The perimeter weapons are world-class, but keep your eyes on the interior line. Watch how frantically they try to maintain pocket integrity and pay attention to how quickly KJ Lacey had to process the field to get the ball into Cam Coleman's hands before that submarine hull cracks.
The contrast between those two units is the defining storyline of the season, which really leaves us with a critical, lingering question to ponder long after this discussion ends.
Lay it on us.
We are standing in the modern era of massive NIL payouts and heavy reliance on the transfer portal, right? Every single program is desperately searching for a structural edge. If Will Muschamp's simplified athletes-over-scheme approach wins a national championship for Texas, the ripple effects will be seismic. Will we see the entire sport of college football abandon these massive, intellectually complex playbooks? Are we about to revert back to a playground-style, raw talent matchup era where the team with the superior athletes simply throws out the whiteboard and physically overwhelms everyone else?
I mean, if raw speed and violence consistently beat the 4D chess match, you are going to see every coach in the country throw their playbooks in the trash.
For sure.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Longhorns Nation podcast. We love dissecting the mechanics of this roster with you. Keep your eyes on the gridiron, watch how the trenches hold up, and we will catch you next time.